not a driving video. Actually, no, this is me and my Spitfire. Back in December, when I started thinking about the amount of time it was taking me to get the GT6 working, I got really itchy for something to drive, so I went on Craigslist and found this 1980 Spitfire for sale down in Buffalo. So I went down across the border and had a look at it. Liked it, the price was good. So back in December I brought it back across the border, all legal of course. Just last week I finally got the safety certification for it, because it's just been sitting waiting for warmer weather. So now it's all road legal, all licensed and insured. And here I am driving up to the Ancaster British Car Day and Flea Market. So this was a lot of fun. Who's that handsome guy with the camera? That's Chef Tush. Ooh, look, it's a GT6. That's pretty. Morning. Welcome back to the garage. Hi everybody, it's April 23rd, Monday. It's not 8:30. My watch says 8:30, but it's not 8:30. It's about 11 o'clock, and I'm back in the garage. Finally had some nice weather, so I'm ready to get going again. I have actually been out here a couple of times, a little bit earlier, puttered around a little bit. We've had a couple of very brief bursts of almost nice weather way back last month and in February. So I'll show some clips of a couple of the things that I did then. It was mostly disassembly of hubs and that kind of thing. Nothing really exciting. But I did get out here late last week and did some cleanup. I know it may not look like it, but I actually took a whole bag full of leaves out of here because, as mentioned, this is just a tent, and so the leaves blow in over the fall and winter. The other good thing is that the mud over on this side appears to be drying up a bit, so that's good. That means we can work over on that side of the car if we need to. Just generally ready to get going again. Just quickly, let you know what the plan is. I'm going to tackle some of the metal work. I want to get started on doing some of that. So let's see if we can get some light in here. And it works much better when you plug in one of the many extension cords. So I think the first thing I'm going to try and tackle is the floor pan. And you can see on this one, for example, see all the light coming through there. Lots of cheese there. The back part of this isn't too bad, but I think because I have the entire floor pans, I'm just going to replace them entirely. So that's going to mean getting out the grinder wheel exposing spot welds to get that support piece out, and then trying to determine exactly where I'm going to cut along the floor pan. So somewhere I'll have to figure out how far up on this edge that I'm going to be cutting. So that's going to take a little bit of fiddling. So I'm not going to bore you with grinding and drilling and all that kind of stuff, because other people have done that much better than I. I will try and come back with some snapshots though of progress as I make it, some progress shots along the way. All right, see you in a bit. All right, so I've just managed to get the first piece of metal off of here. So the first of many, I'm sure. What I've done is on the driver's side, the left-hand side, I've taken off this cross brace. So drilled out the spot welds. From underneath, I cut a little bit of the floor pan. It's going to be placed in any case, but there's obviously some repair going to have to be done along this flange because that bit of the flange has rusted out. But other than that, that piece actually doesn't appear to be in too bad a shape. It's going to need a little bit of cleanup. Maybe some various bits of the flanging will have to be repaired, but otherwise not too bad. So just wanted to record that because that is, as I just mentioned, the first of, I'm sure, many pieces of metal that are going to come out of this. Oh yeah, build a rotisserie, they said. That'll make everything so much easier, they said. Yeah. So this cross brace, which is really required to keep the car from collapsing, maybe not so much on the GT6 as on the Spitfires, but still, I wouldn't want to put it on here without having it, because once I get floor pans and fills going, then, you know, I don't want the frame shifting. But still, trying to duck your head inside this space or over this and work on the spot welds, etc., that are in here. I guess it's easier than other ways, but it's still not easy. Sorry, that's my gripe for the morning. All right, back to work. Okay, so I've got the first floor pan. Just to get a rough idea of where I'm going to have to fiddle with it to make it fit properly. So just a second ago I had it up in place like this. There was a couple of things that became obvious right away. One is right here at the back. The original floor pan actually comes out here flat, and then there's another piece here that comes off the back of the, I don't know, can't remember what that's called. But anyway, this is where the radius arm for the rear suspension mounts. But on the floor pan, the replacement floor pan, this has kind of got a curved, cupped end to it. So at the very least, I think what I'm going to have to do is flatten this out, the replacement, flatten this out so that I can replicate this kind of junction here. There's a bunch of spot welds that I can see. I'll have to drill those out. That shouldn't be too hard to do. So once I get that flattened, then I can hold this up a little bit better for size and configuration. At the front, it almost appears as if this is a tad shorter than the original. It might be something that I can fiddle a little bit once I flatten this out. Shift everything that way slightly. It's hard to tell, I think, until I get that reformed. Up here, there's a curve this curve here, but this return flange is much shallower. So this distance here is much shallower than the original. So again, I think it's going to have to require a little bit of reshaping. Now, on the positive side, come up here towards the front, you can see that once we get around this corner, I think the metal is pretty solid. So I think if I can figure out where to cut here, and then again take a cut along here somewhere, probably going to be pretty close to where this returns to the flange, then I should be able to make that fit fairly well. This edge here, just bottom edge, or rather top edge, depending on which way you're looking at it. Yeah, so this top edge, actually, I'm just going to have to make sure that I don't cut too far down here. So again, there'll be a little bit of fussing, I think, before I can do any more cutting. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, a couple of little updates. I have flattened out the curved end of that floor panel, the passage panel that I have. Did a little relief cut here in the corner, and then straightened that out first with some pliers and then with a hammer on my little railroad anvil. The other thing I've done is I have tried to expose all of the spot welds there on the end of that, so I'm going to start drilling out some of those spot welds. And then I'm going to see, I'm not exactly sure whether I'm going to just do a cut with the angle grinder along here and then clean the rest of this up. It's not like I'm going to be saving all of this sill. A lot of this sill is probably going to be replaced. I do have a sill panel to put in here, so it's not critical. But then around here at the front, again, I was just doing a little bit of test fitting, and the panel that I've got doesn't go all the way up, and it seems to have a notch here, so I'm going to have to be careful about how I cut out around this part here. So, wow, lots of air traffic and lawnmowers and everything going on today. Okay, so that's it. Quick update. Alright, been doing a bit of very, very rough panel comparison. So I think my next step, okay, so I've drilled out the spot welds along here. That's all nicely freed up. I think rather than trying to do spot welds up to the top here, I'm just going to take the angle grinder and come right across here where the flange bends from the pan, and then clean that up a bit later. Again, it's not absolutely critical because that sill is going to be replaced. And do a bit of a jog here because the floor pan that I have, the replacement, doesn't seem to cover this area very well, so I'll leave extra. I can cut back further later on if I need to. And down along the edge here, just past where this bit of cheese is, along the bottom, and again leaving the original on the fat side so that I can trim more if I need to. Always cut less than you have to if you have to do it a little bit blindly, and then you can cut more later. Oh, wait a minute, this is metal, not wood. You can weld metal. Anyway, no, I don't want to do that. Sorry, that was a complete non sequitur. Anyway, so, and then come along the bottom here. Here, hopefully I should be able to pull that whole thing out. Mostly intact, so I can have reference points for things like that, the seat bolts, the seat belt bolt, the chassis bolts here, drain holes with grommets in them. Yeah, so here I go, angle grindering. Yay.
So I've got the floor pan cut done, and then I realized that there's this, which is the radius arm support. Looks like there's about 6 spot welds along there, and then that's edge welded as well, so I'll have to get the grinding wheel on that. So I'm going to drill out those spot welds, grind off that weld, and hopefully that'll come right off. Otherwise, everything else is ready to just pop out, I think.
Well, my lovely wife just brought me out a brew, as the fellows from Project Binky say. And perfect timing as well, because, oh my gosh, there's a hole in my car. Yeah, so there is the driver's side floor pan. Whoops, there's the bits of it that I'm just tripping over now. Pretty much out. Some cleanup to be done here, obviously. There's bits around the flange here on the inner sill that have to be cleaned up. Good thing I got replacement inner sills, and yeah, get that off of there. It was just a bit awkward getting around that with the big 4.5-inch wheel. So there's the support that I mentioned just a moment ago for the radius arm. I actually ended up drilling out the spot welds from underneath, just to leave the heavier metal intact rather than putting a hole in that, and then use the grinding wheel or the cutting wheel to take off the weld along the edge there, where it was held in place. And there's the piece that's going to come off as well. That's got the 2 holes for the chassis mounting bolts. Use that as a reference point later on. So yeah, a little bit of cleanup to be done around here, and then I can start trying to do some fitment. So pretty darn exciting. Okay, so as I think I showed you already, got the floor pan out. I'm going to rotate the car around a little bit and do a little bit of fussing to see how my replacement pan was going to fit. So I'm just going to set you down and try not to fall over at the same time. Very high. Let's see if I can get you a bit higher. Hold on. Alright, that's a bit better. Very rough, sort of trying to figure out what has to be adjusted to fitting. So now, as I already mentioned, this was curved down this way. I flattened it out so that I can replicate the original type of join that the floor pan has. Now, just at the moment, I've got about 3/8 of an inch on this side of me that this floor pan has to come over to meet where the sill is. Now, this is, again, just very, very rough. So, looking down here, and the front edge of the pan dives in here, but right now it's got this big, probably 2-inch flange on it, which is
way more than it needed. And not only that, the depth is not the same as the original depth of the floor. So this portion of the flange right here is going to have to be adjusted in any case. So I think what I'm going to do is, like I did on that end, make a relief cut along here and straighten this out so that I can get a bit more play here. Now, another thing, I had, again, this is about 1.5 inches before it creates this big flange, and here there's most of the metal along here is pretty good. So along from here to here, the metal's in pretty good shape. A little bit pitted, but good and solid otherwise. From here around the corner, there is some holes. It's a little bit cheesy. So what I think I'm going to do, again, I will flatten this, trim it a little bit, flatten it, and then I have enough metal to come around the edge here. Hopefully then I can also use the curve that's inherent in the floor pan pressing to replicate the curve that's around here. The other thing I was thinking about is possibly just cutting out some small patches here, patching it in a couple or 3 pieces to make this edge a little bit more robust, but still haven't quite decided yet. That's going to take a couple more minutes of thought. Presuming that's mostly taken care of, then once I've got that fitting better, then what I can do is I can scribe along here. Once I can, this section right here is preventing the edge of this flange from coming right up against the sill. So once I get this sorted, I'll be able to bring that right over and then scribe all along here to get a good joint line. And also, as you can see, the pressing doesn't quite match where I cut, or maybe where I cut doesn't match the pressing. Chicken or egg, we decide. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of fiddling in here, but that's where I am. Okay, it's just a little bit after 5 and I'm going to pack it in for the day. So this is starting to take shape. So I did a little bit of trimming and bending and beating and etc. The hammer and dolly, and that got this shape a little bit better. It's hard to see. Let's see if I can get some more light. Yeah, that's a little bit better to see. So this still has to be formed in a little bit more, but you can see at the back has to come in a little bit to get the right line. So if we pull that in, yeah, it doesn't quite sit yet. But if you look inside, again, light. Come here. If you look inside, you can see that forms not too badly. Now I just have to make sure I get a good scribe around where I'm going to have those seams meet. But otherwise, I think it's starting to take shape here. Probably another day or so of fussing and fiddling to get it to the right shape and get everything cut properly. And then I'll be able to maybe tack it in place at least. And then once that's tacked in securely, then I will start disassembling the sills, and so the outer sills, the inner sills, and the stiffeners, so this whole assembly can come out. There's obviously going to have to be a little bit of metal work done here. We'll see how much is still retrievable, and maybe you can just patch some of that rather than getting a new inner A panel piece. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the first day back. So, see how much I've got. Maybe I'll upload this tonight. Thanks again very, very much for subscribing. Last time I checked, I was up to about 150 subscribers. So hopefully with a little bit more content on my channel, then I can get some more people interested and kind of fulfill the promise that I made to the people that are already subscribing. Promise, that is, that I was actually going to finish this project. So anyway, that's it for tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow.